visceral,
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here. Hello. Right. This is 5 things you asked us to do with the Marshall 1987X. We're doing this because a couple of weeks back we did a show comparing a JCM 45 and a 1987X, 2 of the classic small box Marshalls. If you want the kind of full fat version, please go back and watch that video. However, what came up in a lot of the comments were some themes.
Yes.
So we're going to work through them. It'll be a fairly short video. We're just going to do some things that were suggested in that video.
Short for us.
And see where we get to. So first up, Daniel, Justin B. Pearson
Okay.
and Tony's 4292 both said, we covered off jumping the 2 channels with a short patch cable.
Right.
Does it make any difference to use a Y cable?
Okay.
So you've, as you can see today, we have an extremely complex pedal board. You won't be hearing any of that until we plug it in. At the moment, we just guitar straight into amp. So a Y cable, Dan, what's a Y cable?
So a Y cable is simply a connection that is split into 2 more connections. It's a passive thing.
Yeah.
So the idea with a Y cable is if you plug directly into the inputs, say, you know, the higher level inputs and channels, the bright channel, the normal channel, you're bypassing the extra loading that jumpering from the 1 to the 2 back to the 1 gives you.
Yeah, because the 2 pairs of inputs, you've got a high and a low. So instead of going into the high of 1, out of the low of 2 into the high of 2, the normal channel, we're going to see if using a Y cable changes the sound at all.
Yeah. Now, my prediction is,
Yeah.
in this situation where we're going from guitars straight in, yes, it will change because we're loading less.
Okay.
But if you come from a low impedance signal, I'm assuming it'll make very little difference because that will be driving the loading at the input of the amp.
Okay, so first up, nothing clever then. Guitar's coming out of Dan's guitar. It's going to go into this passive just connection, basically. And then these 2 cables are going to go into the amp. I suppose I should do a detail of this. Wherever I put my phone down. This is guitar straight to amp using the jumper method that you can see here. Okay,
Right.
so something's problematic there.
Yep.
Let's do this. We got a problem.
Yeah. So if you take the output from a cable, right, and you just split it, what that's going into, the output from the guitar has to drive both of those inputs.
Yeah.
Right? Have you ever done a jam with a mate where you've both had a split cable going into an amplifier.
No,
And you're playing and your mate turns down and then you get turned down as well.
that wouldn't be acceptable.
No, it's very not acceptable. Well, it's a similar thing. But yeah, so yeah, it's really interesting that just a passive split causes...
Is giving us some problems.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's make it an active split.
Yep.
As you can see on the complex pedal board today, we've got a JHS splitter, the Judean People's Front. So now, just going to unplug all that. This is going to go in there. Dan, if you could plug that into the other one. Oops, there we go. That can go in there. So now we're doing exactly the same thing, but the split is active.
Mm-hmm.
Dan will also need a cable. Ignore the treble booster, that's not doing anything yet. That's a little treat for later. In fact, let's just prove it's not doing anything. Take it right out of the game.
Nice.
So now we're going active splitter. Splitter! Boom. Let's see if we get the same problem. And again. I suppose the audio will tell a story, but I'm not hearing a huge difference
Between...
any of it really, apart from the horrible noise of the first one.
Sure. Yeah. So the passive splitter that we put, if that came after, like at the end of your pedal board, and you went into both, inputs, even though that's passive, if it's driven, if the output impedance from a pedal is driving that, it'll be the same that we're getting there.
Yeah, okay. So what we're dealing with is a capacitance issue, among other things.
Dealing with a loading thing, and the low output of this guitar sort of insufficient to drive once the cable's been split to drive both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not hearing anything there that would make me go, oh yeah, Y cable's the way to go.
No, yeah, sure.
Jumping seems fine.
Yeah.
So let's move on from there then. Thing two, Thor or Torre Tornado 1671, among other people, wanted to know, what about the low inputs? For the whole video, we kind of focused on the high input of the 1987X. Let's try the low input and just see what difference that makes. So we'll get rid of all this conkers and just go back to guitar into amp. We will get on to cranking the high treble channel in a minute, because that's one of the other things. But for now, here is the high treble channel as we had it, just the high treble channel.
Okay.
You may need to be careful.
So that's what that is?
Low input.
Turned up like that, that's really nice.
Normal channel, high input. I'm still not enjoying it, truth be told.
Oh yeah, it's not fun.
No, which we will get to. So, Nady and Mart's 6083, Nady and Mart's 6083 wanted to know if you jump the channels the other way.
Okay, so go into the low input.
Go into the low.
From the high to the low.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Let's try that. So we'll start off as we were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Try this.
Nice.
Noticing much difference?
Yeah, there's less gain, less attack.
Okay, it's going to play with the volume. Oh, even though the volume control on this is really crackly, sorry, I need to fix it. But anyway. Okay, I am never, ever going to be a fan of that histrionic high end.
Sure.
I hate it.
Yeah.
So, it leads us on to the next thing, which, thing number 3, this was really popular, okay? So, Sid Hearth Modi, 1945, VFR bike, Dennis Wally, 3394, and Simpwood 4973. It sounds like 1984, doesn't it? People don't have names anymore. They've just got numbers. All those people, among others, were saying, look, if you don't like that histrionic brightness in the treble channel, you've got to crank it.
Right.
Not jumped. Crank it around so that the bright cap is out.
Yes.
So straight into the high input of the high treble channel, and make sure the volume is past 8.
Okay.
So the harshness of the bright cap goes away. Let's try that. In addition, you need to turn the bass pretty much off and give it more treble.
Really? Okay.
So that's what we're going to do. Sid Hearth Modi, VFR bike, Dennis Wally 3394, and Simpwood 4973, among others. This is for you. High treble channel, past 8, not jumped.
Do you want to start with this on the Lester?
Okay.
And then go to the telly?
Sure.
I really like that. I want to hear the Strat into that after this.
Okay.
But I think that...
There's more cranking to come, so...
Okay, all right.
We went from where we were
Right.
to something that at 1958, 1998 wanted us to do,
Okay.
which was all the knobs on 10 except the normal channel volume, which needs to be at 7, even though you're only in the high treble channel.
Okay.
So a bit like in a Tweed, I guess.
Right.
It makes some difference.
Okay.
I can't wait to hear it back because I've got earplugs in. I can't really make any sort of judgment on what's happening.
Yeah.
I also think one of the mics might have been on the edge of clipping there, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
I think getting the treble channel up
yeah, that
So,
definitely makes a difference.
definitely makes a difference. Getting rid of that, you can. The difference in getting that cap out of the circuit
Yeah.
was really interesting.
Yeah, so I think we're definitely going to do the bright cap mod, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's going to.
I think it'll make that amp. Not that it's not usable now,
Yeah.
but it's so delicate, that balance at the moment. When we turn that high treble on,
and you
channel
can't
on.
have it up at 8.
No,
It's
no.
ridiculous. Using an attenuator is an option, but we don't like them. They take all the life away. So just getting it to sound better at lower volume would work.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's a totally different way of doing things, isn't it?
Yes.
I do just want to try the old Cutler guitar with the humbuckers.
Oh yeah, come on. Yeah, great.
So a friend of ours, Dean Cutler, who came to an experience, they made this guitar. It's got bare knuckle mules in it, and you can guess the rest of the inspiration. But it'll be
Next Blue Meanie.
an interesting experiment nonetheless. Exactly where we were, everything on 10 apart from the
normal channel on
which is on 7, which is
Okay.
not being used.
Okay.
So let's go turn the bass down. while we're there, let's just jumper it and see if that really is better.
Okay.
High treble full up, normal on 6.
Okay.
7. Again, the audio will tell the story. I pulled the jumper lead out halfway through. I couldn't detect much discernible difference.
By the time you get up to that level, it's...
Tell you what's really interesting. So, I mean, Dan and I are no stranger to volume. We happily play at that volume just with not that kind of sound.
Yeah.
I can't, because of the extra harmonics and the histrionics and everything else that's going to sound great recorded, I can't hear whether the guitar's in tune.
No.
There's so much I can't hear at that point.
The sound pressure level has so much to do with that, because it's sort of... It's overwhelming, you know, trying to get your brain to function.
I guarantee that when the Two Rocks cranking, the dB meter will be reading higher.
Yeah, sure.
So there'll be... Yeah. But it's just not... It's not surrounded by all that...
Mess,
yeah, which is
but
glorious
lovely mess. Yeah.
Okay. I'm an Alien 2222. We're on to thing 4 of 5. So if you're struggling, don't worry, it'll end soon. Wants to hear a treble booster. The Hello Sailor treble booster is one of the best treble boosters we've heard. We absolutely love it. So let's do that, Daniel. So we may as well stay on patent pending-ish, seeing as we're still there. Mm-hmm. Let's go to something more sensible. Let's get back down to like 8. Exactly as we were. Seems to be working quite nicely. What's he done with his earplugs? Ready? I'm an Alien 2222. This is for you. earplugs in, that amount of histrionic, I cannot play in tune.
It's, yeah.
I just can't get anywhere near it. So, well, first off, massive respect to those of you and those of they who managed to stay intact doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just literally can't play in tune. It's really weird. And don't get me wrong, I am happy with the cranked amp. We played cranked amps for years, but maybe not that.
Yeah. There's so much shenanigan in the top end, and
Yeah. That's you'd have to work with that, wouldn't you? Okay, glorious though. When it was glorious, it was glorious.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
There are moments where it's like,
That's it.
okay, there it is. That's it.
Finally then, thing 5, the last thing, Jace 878 and Shaky 71. Among others, please do wet dry with the JTM 45.
Oh, yeah. And back in the room.
Okay, Jace 878, Shaky 71 among others. Here they are wet dry. So the 87 is exactly as it was on the Marshall 412. Unfortunately, we don't have another Marshall 412. So the JTM 45 is going into the 212 EV cab. Which
sounds ridiculous.
Sounds ridiculous anyway. And given that we're going to be using it for the wet amp, probably those speakers being as, let's say, not breaky-uppy as they are, will help with some of the wet effects. So we'll start this is how Dan and I would probably run them. Just with headroom in the amps and then add stuff from the board. And we will get into cranking the amps in a sec. But so just the amps themselves, I'd probably have somewhere around here.
Amazing.
You can see how Dan and I have grown fond of this. Now, it might be that you prefer the Crank Marshall, and absolutely every day of the week for that amp screaming thing, for everything that is histrionically rock and roll beautiful about it. I totally get it. So that's using the amps as a clean platform.
Now, what's really interesting is that when you kicked on the second stage of the Juggler, there was elements of that thing in the Marshall, that strident forward, but it didn't hurt. It was a character of the amplifier, but it was it didn't have the raspiness or the
I predict in the comments people will go, oh, it just loses all its fun and all its character and all that's cool, that's rock and roll about it by having it cleaner.
Right.
But having it cleaner for me just means I can hear it. Means I can play more in tune. Means that it just sits in a place. We'll crank them in a minute. I'll just do one more thing before we give Dan a play. I'm just going to see if me Hendrixy. So one of the things I really love about the CXM 78, this is in stereo, by the way, everything else is wet dry. The harmonious monk, the delay, and the chorus are only going to the
wet amp.
The wet amp,
which
the
is the
JTM45.
Yep.
What I love about the CXM 78 is its room reverb.
Awesome.
And if we now do that in E flat, E flat.
Magic.
That
It's magic.
is what a fuzz into a Marshall should sound like, and it didn't sound like it in the video. Maybe because they were too cranked.
Yeah, maybe. I don't. The thing we were talking about before about the loading of the inputs, I don't know what's going on with the.
Yeah, they're both jumped, by the way, but using both channels of both amps. Danny boy, give Danny a little clean go on the high headroom, and then we'll finish off by cranking them and just not having any overdrive from here, having the overdrive from the amps, and having some wet effects.
Taylor.
No need whatsoever for earplugs.
Oh, okay.
During that whole last thing for me, because the transients and the niceness of it was in a place that it's not worrying me at all.
Yeah, right.
So it'll change when Dan plays the telly, but There's nothing on there. There's
Right.
no overdrive pedal on anywhere.
That's the amp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So that's clean and that's dirty.
There's quite a lot of overdrive happening.
And it's the amp.
Keep going then. Yeah, man. Very nice.
Beautiful.
Very, very nice. Seems to me like the happy spot there is having the amps working enough.
Yeah. It doesn't take a lot
No.
to get them into that place.
So we didn't need to get round to that
Yeah.
cranked histrionic place. Nice, man. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, totally.
I thought that was interesting. You can see why Dan and I gravitate to amps that slightly have more headroom, use pedals and stuff to create most of the overdrive. But then also, I think the way we both run our amps is kind of on the edge so that when you do give them that extra hoof from the pedals, the amp starts to introduce some harmonic niceness as well.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely worthwhile. After the comments from the last video, it's fantastic
Yeah.
to put them in all those situations to see what happened. Obviously, the wet dry thing, even with the amps cranked, having that bit of atmosphere going on with the effects is a whole different thing.
The clarity difference
Yeah.
is out this world. Like we were saying with the 87X cranked, I was finding it hard to hear what was in tune and what was out of tune because of all the extra harmonics and histrionics. Actually, with the two amps going there, I think we were every bit as loud, if not louder.
Right.
But the clarity was on a whole other level, and I really hope that comes across in the audio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly the experience sat here in the room is, the cranked 87X, glorious, glorious, glorious rock guitar sound that it is it's hard to hear, actually stood here.
Sure.
Nothing hard to hear about what we just heard there.
No.
But that might translate to sterile in the recording. So
I doubt it.
fascinated to hear your comments on
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Ace.
There we go. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, thanks for all your comments too.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merch. 'Tis the season to be merched up.
Yeah. Even if you're watching this in January, get in early for next year.
Absolutely. Massive thank you to our patrons on Patreon.
Thank you.
Yep. And also to our preferred retailers in the UK and Europe is...
Anderson's Music of Guildford in Surrey.
And our mates in Australia.
Would be Pedal Empire of Queensland.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Have a fantastic day. Oh, and our American friends.
Yes, thatpedalshop.com. Please go to thatpedalshop.com and buy stuff. I'm shaken by tone, Dan, in a good way.
I love it. I love it. Cheers, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.